Playing with Power is the biggest name in cEDH, and I got to play some games with them. Now, playing with this group, I knew I had to bring something pretty spicy to the table, so I brought the brand new Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. Now, I've already done a video breaking down Ashaya and the combos within the deck. If you want to check that out, click this right here. Without any further ado, let's check out today's pod. First up, it's me, and I'm playing Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. Following me in second is Mike, and he's playing Timnacrom Blue Farm. In third is Folger, and he's playing Kenrith, the Returned King. And last but not least is Ryan. He's playing Yidris, the Maelstrom Wielder. Now, his version of Yidris is a little bit different because it focuses more on mid-range value than the normal aggressive Storm versions. My opening hand contains a Forest, Jiraga Tree Speaker, Sol Ring, Yisan the Wanderer Bard, Collector Oof, Green Sun Zenith, and Thousand Year Elixir. Now this hand's definitely more of a risky one because I don't have a second land, and to get up to Ashaya I need a certain amount of mana. However, I'm willing to take a risk here because the amount of acceleration in this hand is really strong. A little bit of awkwardness also with Collector Oof and Sol Ring being in the opener. I definitely have to balance those two cards and make sure that I'm not shutting off my own game plan too aggressively. Another reason I'm really willing to keep this hand is the strength of Yisan. Yisan by itself can usually assemble all the necessary pieces to our combos just by going up the verse chain of 1, 2, and 3. Alright, let's go. So right off the bat we have 2 Gemstone Caverns for my opponents, which is not a great feeling when you're going first. Now because Dryad Arbor is a creature, I did want to get it out this first turn because it does suffer from summoning sickness, so getting it out as soon as possible was really important to me. Now this is one of those games where it's really important to recognize the fact that Rhystic Study is also a stacks piece, because in this game it actually does a lot more slowing down of Folger and I than it really does the whole table. Mike ends up being a little more greedy with it throughout the game, but I'll highlight those moments as they come.
Jesus, how did I beat that card? I can't beat that card.
Figure it out.
Since Ryan seems to be done being savage, I go to my turn. Because I didn't draw my second land, I don't get to pay for Rhystic Study for the Sol Ring here, but my Sol Ring allows me to pay for my Jiraga Tree Speaker. I just want to keep ramping out my stuff, and I end my turn. So multiple times during my turn, Ryan keeps asking me about the CMC of my spells. First he's like, hey, Sol Ring, that's a 1-drop. And then after that he asked me about the CMC of Jiraga Tree Speaker. So it's super obvious to me at this point that he's holding up a mental misstep, which makes the next turn a little more infuriating because I very loudly announced that he's asking a lot of CMC based questions and try to call him out. So on his turn, Mike does try to Red Elemental blast Ryan's Rhystic Study, but as I mentioned before, it's very clear that Ryan has a misstep and he counters it.
You monster. Yeah, okay.
No, the monster is you. You just red blasted the Rhystic Study and didn't pay the 1. Are you kidding me?
And because Mike is going full greedy here, he plays Timna and lets Ryan draw a card. Now Folger here does pay for Rhystic Study for both his spells this turn, which does show the effect of Rhystic Study sort of as a stacks piece against the opponents. So Ryan just draws his card for turn, suspends a Lotus Bloom, and passes the turn. And he's holding up 5 mana, which anyone who knows Yidris will probably know what that means. So on my turn, I level up my Tree Speaker and I play Yisan, which will allow me to set up for either a win or a protected win within the next 2 turns.
Honestly, dude, if you just want to torture me, you should just show me gameplay of people not paying for Rhystic Study no more.
We go over to Mike's turn, and he starts off by attacking with Timna, drawing a card, and then pays for Crom, without paying for Study. So Folger does a little bit of accelerating in his turn, but he plays out his commander Kenrith the Returned King, which happens to walk into one of the biggest blowouts of all time when Ryan throws down a Fire Covenant. He pays enough life to remove every single creature from the board, including my Dryad Arbor, so I am so far behind at this point in the game, I don't really know what to do. Luckily, I do end up hitting that second land drop so I can play a Thousand Year Elixir, which I pay the Study for. So Mike just ends up playing a Lotus Petal and passing because he was really on the Timnacrom grind plan, which ended up backfiring pretty bad. Now, in a hope to get some free value here, Mike jams out a Chain of Vapor, bouncing Ryan's Yidris because he's already so far ahead he does not need his commander. He was also hoping that maybe some artifacts and enchantments got bounced so that Folger's dockside was a little less. Ryan is committed to this Yidris plan, so he slams down a carpet and then just plays Yidris again. And a phrase that you're going to get used to from me for my turns is, I draw a card and pass. While the other 3 are just playing playing their engines over and over again, I get really stuck in this position where I have the oof in my hand and really nothing else I can play for my turns. In hopes of stealing some value from Ryan, Folger slams down a Gilded Drake to take Ryan's Yidris. Now, it is important for the rest of this game to realize how low Ryan's life total is. On my turn, I luckily draw one of the best pieces in my deck, a Survival of the Fittest, which is going to allow me to tutor on end step and get rid of this useless oof. Now, it is at this point that our Ristic Study problem seems to double itself as Mike gets a copy of his own. Yikes. Now, it's at this point that Mike moves to his favorite phase, Combat. Now, because Ryan is at 8 life, Folger goes all out at Ryan with his combat. However, if he does have success here, he will lose his Yidris. However, he makes a big miscalculation.
Ryan will die. I'll get the Yidris trigger. Yidris will get exiled.
No, not with the current board state.
See, because Ryan blocks with the Gilded Drake here, he actually survives at 1 unless Folger uses Kenrith's ability to pump one of his creatures.
You can literally kill him right now.
I mean, I can, but I don't want, like, that's an extra 2 mana, dog.
So Folger makes a really heads-up play here. So instead of jamming spells into 2 Ristic Studies because he has a Yidris trigger, he just decides to hold up mana and pass. This way, he knows he's not going to advance his board state while feeding 2 other players, so I think this was a really smart move. So going into my turn, I know that I have to get a combo piece that will allow me to play Ashaya and basically go for the win. So I go for one of my pieces in Leyweaver. Now, a bunch of things happen at once here, and it starts with Folger using Kenrith to reanimate his dockside. I take this as a perfect opportunity for me to use a Force of Vigor that I've had in my hand, targeting both Ristic Studies. My spell resolves, then Folger uses his dockside mana to reanimate his Gilded Drake, targeting Crom. Mike decides he'd rather sack it to a Culling the Weak than have it under Folger's control. Now, I finally get to my turn and can play the Leyweaver in addition to Wild Growth for ramp. So because the way Leyweaver works with 1000-Year Elixir, I'm able to tap and untap it enough that I can play the Leyweaver and still pass my turn with 5 mana up. This is great because I have a Chord of Calling in hand, which means I can go grab any 2-drop out of my deck at the end step. Now on his turn, Mike goes for something that I usually do not see, which is a value Underworld Breach. Out of his yard, he casts a Red Blast targeting Yidris, which resolves, and then he casts a Ristic Study. Not wanting to pay the 1, Folger responds by casting a Vamp Tutor. Now I know Folger is going for a win here, so when he casts his Phantasmal Image, I'm not surprised, but I don't have anything that Chord will get that can help me in this situation. Luckily, Ryan comes in clutch and he has the mana drain waiting for Phantasmal Image, and Folger does not have enough mana to reanimate the image right now. So the weird thing about this play is that Ryan is at 1, which got me thinking, is that a play you should make? See, it is almost guaranteed that Folger, with the creatures he has on the battlefield and the fact that Ryan's open, will attack Ryan for lethal. But Folger has to keep Ryan around so that the dockside is potent enough to win off of. Which makes you wonder, is that a spite play for Ryan to counter that spell? By doing that, he keeps himself alive, but at the same time, he also stops Folger from winning. And if it's almost guaranteed that Ryan's gonna die, what does that mean? Now, I think Ryan did the right thing here, and I'm not just saying this because it put me in a really good position, but I think you should always play to your outs. And Ryan's out in that moment was to try and survive and not lose to the guaranteed win, which was Folger comboing off with the Phantasmal Image. So it's tough. It's a really tough moment, and it's not black and white. And in that moment, Folger never brought it up. None of the other players brought it up. I just thought it was a bit odd during the moment, and watching it again, I just thought it was an interesting point to bring up to talk about in this video. In Folger's second main phase, he Imperial Seals, but as we move to the end step, I cast that Chord of Calling for 2 to grab a Duskwatch Recruiter, which is one of my infinite mana outlets. Now I make the safe play here and decide to crop rotation first so that I can get a Cavern of Souls and make my Ashaya uncounterable. With Ashaya hitting the field, Leyweaver is able to target a land and then itself, and I generate infinite mana. With infinite mana, I activate Duskwatch Recruiter enough times to get all the creatures out of my deck. I then play a Beast Whisperer and Aquarian Ranger. With this loop, I am able to pick up Ranger over and over again, and the Beast Whisperer will allow me to draw the rest of my deck. Now that my deck's in my hand, I can cast a Finale for infinite damage and swing with all of my creatures. Thank you for joining me for another gameplay video here on ComedIan MTG. Big shout out to the guys from Playing with Power. It was super fun playing with them. They have honored me by letting me play on their stream twice now, and it's been a blast both times. Please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps out the channel a ton. And we have some amazing people who help us out on patreon.com/ComedIanMTG. If you would like to join them and get your name in the credits like these amazing people, you can do so by following this link right here.